Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing one of the best 2019 Patek Philippe releases, the successor to the 5170. This is the Patek Philippe 5172G-001. A 41mm white gold chronograph that draws on the basic styling themes of the 5320G perpetual calendar and advances the state-of-the-art in Patek chronograph design. So you can see the watch is 41mm in diameter. It's slim, as you can see, 11.7mm thick and 49.4mm from lug tip to lug tip with a 20mm spacing between the lugs. It is a little bit larger than the 5170, but it doesn't wear remarkably larger. The timepiece is comfortable, and if you can wear the 5170, you can wear this. Flat, flush, easily sliding underneath the dress cuff with that sloped and stepped case band. You can see it's wide across the wrist, but not excessively so. The watch is full-sized rather than oversized, and I find that's a good size for a men's dress complication. The watch looks just fine from over the top. It's not protruding off the edge of my wrist, and I can recommend it for a wrist as small as 14.5 centimeters circumference. The timepiece includes a strap, as you can see, Patek Philippe factory, calfskin on the bottom, and then a lovely suede, almost nubuck texture calfskin on the top. There's a contrasting stitch that nicely matches the tone of the numerals themselves. You can see this is a brand new Patek strap, and it includes a Patek Philippe white gold folding clasp. As you can see, polished inside, polished outside with the Calatrava cross motif. This watch is not polished in the refinishing sense, so I want to be clear about that. The watch does have some swirls on its case flank, but that's about it. We prefer not to diminish the metal of watches, and we would only refinish this if it were out of warranty and the buyer requested it. This watch has all the metal with which it left Geneva. Now you can see the timepiece is beautifully crafted externally with a stepped case flank, and you can really see how it's stepped out on both the bottom and the top, so it thins out the apparent profile of the case. And then there are two steps up to the sapphire. You can see that there's a little bit of a conical profile for each of these steps. The bezel is very, very narrow, and we have these triple strakes on the lug profiles. The case itself, especially the lugs, draws from the vintage reference 2405, and then we have this vintage-inspired bubble-like cambered sapphire to look like a vintage plexiglass. You can see a conventional Patek Philippe crown with the Calatrava cross, but then a lovely turbine motif that comes to a conical point on the pump pushers themselves with a little bit of recess cut into the case. The dial includes white on matte blue printing, and the blue of the strap is the blue of the dial. It's a granular, very lightly roughed surface, similar to what you'll find on the Calatrava Pilot, and it really does have that aesthetic as the dial base is concerned. The rest of the dial, you'll note, is a blend of the 5170 and then the 5320G perpetual calendar again. The dial of this and the 5320 drawn from the two-piece historical model 1591. That watch was a perpetual calendar moon phase, so you could see it less on the chronograph than on the 5320, but it does have the syringe hands and the vertically arrayed Arabic numerals of the 1591. Now, we also have recessed registers, and characteristic of the movement is they're dropped slightly below the cannon pinion, the hands at center. The watch is loomed, so there will be a loom shot. We have a tachymeter outboard that you can use with the chronograph to gauge the speed of something moving very quickly, unless you are handy with decimals. Make sure the watch is wound and powered up, and we can operate the chronograph. It is an absolute pleasure to operate, as the column wheel on this watch is particularly well tuned. Turning it over, we have the same movement here that we had on the 5170. It is the 29535 Petit Second. It is a large movement that fills the case back nicely, and it is a lateral clutch column wheel chronograph type. So you can see the lateral clutch is fully jeweled and in steel, hand finished. All the chronograph parts with satin on their top, they're made of steel, and then mirrored beveling on their edges. You can see we have sharp outward angles here, and then we have a black polished column wheel, and the column wheel cap is an age-old technique used by watchmakers to prevent the levers and horns from popping out of the crenellated towers under shock. Well, this watch is never going to face those kind of concussions, but the timepiece does include a capped and black polished column wheel for traditional reasons. Now you can see there's Cote de Genève across the bridges, mirror polished screw heads with chamfered slots in circumference, satinated wheels, and then we can see that there's engine turning on the base plate. It is a manual wind 65-hour power reserve. The 33 jewel movement is adjusted in 6 positions, one more than a standard chronometer. It does have hacking or stop seconds. It's free sprung for durability. It has a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring, of course, beaten away at 8 beats per second or 28,800 vibrations per hour. You can see that it has a sort of pawl and pawl wheel, and that is responsible for the jumping of the minute. It is an instantaneous jumping minute, and once more, the tuning of the column wheel is a piece of heaven. All of this water resistant down to 30 meters and gorgeously finished inside and out. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. That's Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com.